the horrors of Hollywood in this movie right here.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you stupid cunt.
Wow. Wow, man. That was some disturbing shit. Damn. Just wow. Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for 2024's The Substance. Yeah, the film that recently had won Demi Moore a Golden Globe. And what Rambo After Life called the best horror film of 2024. So, what is the plot of Substance? Well, think about this. Have you ever dreamed of a better version of yourself? You, but better in every way? And you immediately want to try this new product. They call it The Substance. It changes your life. It gives you a new you, a new younger, more beautiful, more perfect you. But there's one rule. You share time with this new version of you. 1 week for you, 1 week for the new you. 7 days each. A perfect balance sounds easy. As long as, well, not if you don't respect the balance. And it's pretty much the concept of The Substance, and plot of The Substance, pretty much. So, how was The Substance made? Well, this was an international co-production between France, the UK, and the United States. The film followed the critical success of Fargut's first feature film, Revenge, got motivated by the social pressures of bodies and aging, so Fargut wrote the screenplay in 2 years with detailed descriptions and minimal dialogue. Demi Moore was cast in the lead role after a series of interviews. Qualley was cast second, and Ray Liotta originally was going to be in Quaid's role before he had sadly died 2 years ago. The movie got filmed in France over 108 days, and the film made extensive use of makeup designed by Pierre-Olivier Persdin, insert shots, this variety of sets, and of course, it had over 21,000 liters of fake blood. The score was written by Rafferty, and even features the cover of Pump It Up by DJ Ender. And the prosthetic stuff has a series of grotesque and hyper-realistic suits, puppets, and dummies for the drug-induced transformation. And of course, after The Substance was officially shot, I didn't really know about this film until it really released, so it wasn't marketed wide enough. But it had its world premiere on May 19th, 2024 last year at the Cannes Film Festival, and Fargut won Best Screenplay. Then it released theatrically in the United Kingdom and the United States by Mubi on September 20, 2024, and in France by Metropolitan Film Export on November 6, 2024. This movie, when it came out, was a critical and commercial success because on a $17 million budget, it grossed $78 million worldwide, and it became Mubi's highest grossing film. And it got many nominations, such as 5 of the Golden Globe Awards. Demi Moore won Best Actress in Musical or Comedy. 7 nominations at the Critics' Choice Awards, and Best Picture and Best Actress nomination for Moore at the Screen Actors Guild Awards. Now, as for my reaction, after hearing all the love this movie got, I always wanted to check this out because, and another thing that really interested me in checking this movie out was that seeing Demi Moore in a role again, which is very exciting to hear because I absolutely love Demi Moore in films like Ghost or Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I'm actually so happy she won a Golden Globe. And you could tell from the joy in her speech at the Golden Globe Awards and her reaction to the win. Yeah, like this was such a well-deserved moment. And like how how originally, remember back when she did date Bruce Willis, and back when they were a couple, and they, during the, kind of, definitely like, especially around the time they both voice acted together in Beavis and Butthead Do America. And I love how even though her and Bruce aren't really a couple anymore, they do still keep in touch, and she's even still there for him during the tough time he's currently going through right now. So I was definitely happy to see her again. That's what really motivated me to wanting to check this out. And after, of course, hearing that several people really loved it. This film is easily... So I checked it out tonight. And how is this movie? Well, can't believe I didn't see this back in 2024 when it released, because this easily has to be the best non-sequel horror movie of 2024, and I can see why everyone really loved it. This shows the horrors of fame and Hollywood, and it's very well directed and well written. What do I think? Now, I think this easily also might have to easily be the scariest movie of 2024. Yeah, because like this film had me flinch a bunch of times and even made me feel very uncomfortable in the very first few minutes. Like the substance is even better than you typically would expect to hear from many of the reactions. From the opening scene, the movie grabs you with its cinematography and its performances by Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore. The 2.5-hour runtime flies by. And this movie is destined to become an instant cult classic, especially with ones who's watched horror films from directors like David Cronenberg. This really feels more Cronenberg than stuff like Infinity Pool did, which literally just sucked. This film is much more Cronenberg-like. It really blends his fantastic score with some sharp social satire, and it feels really timely and timeless. And what really sets the substance apart is the homeristic directors like Stanley Kubrick, with a fresh female-driven perspective that really makes every moment feel uniquely powerful. The director Coralie Farget really crafted a horror experience that's exactly what a Cronenberg movie nowadays should be doing. And like the movies back when he actually knew how to direct and stuff, and easily like. This film, yeah, it's probably not going to be a film that's going to be to everybody's taste. And no, not because it's a bad movie, because it's not a bad movie. It's a good movie. But it has this, certain, really hard to sit through stuff, some extreme intensity, and a very visual style that some viewers could find overwhelming or just not pleasant to sit through. But how do we start off this movie? Well, either her 61st or 50th birthday, Elizabeth Sparkle, this once celebrated but now faded Hollywood film star, hosts this kind of Arabic show, and then when she's in the bathroom, she gets dismissed by the producer, who's Dennis Quaid's character, who originally was going to be played by Ray Liotta, but he couldn't because he had sadly passed on. So sadly, Cocaine Bear ended up being his last film. Although I really wish this could have been Ray Liotta. I really wish Ray Liotta could have lived long enough for this to be his last film. I feel like this definitely would have been a better way for him to go out. But Dennis Quaid's character pretty much dismisses her from her show because of her age. And that's kind of the reality in Hollywood nowadays. As soon, if you're a famous actor, once you're in your 50s or 60s, they pretty much can ya. Regardless if... And no, this is not just for it doesn't depend on the gender. Regardless of famous, once you get to your 50s, they pretty much tell you you're done. And you barely get much stuff left. You may get some roles, but not a lot as much. Not a lot as much by then. It really shows the realities of Hollywood, and yeah. But Elizabeth is distraught, and her car gets crashed while distracted by a billboard of herself being taken down. So once they're at the hospital, this nurse gives her this flash drive advertising the substance, which is a serum from the black market, and it promises a younger, more beautiful version of oneself. And from there, it sets up what you will see Elizabeth go through to try to look young again and get her show back, or get her normal self back, so she can get her fame back. And from the get-go, Farjet throws us in a world that's familiar and nightmarishly distorted. The director's keen eye for satire is on full display. It shows society's obsession with youth and perfection with razor-sharp precision. There's pretty much a world where Botox parties are common as book clubs, and the pursuit of eternal beauty really comes at this terrifying cost. And where the movie excels the most is the filmmaking aspect. The camera work is very superb, and it's definitely an example of a well-directed horror film in today's world. And Farjet really uses extreme close-ups frequently to the point where the whole aspect of micro the world really just starts to kind of blend in, and her choice of the macro lenses, really does well in making the audience feel exhausted or emotionally drained. When she uses technique, it also has a narrative purpose and kind of just being a visual candy. There, and also, the movie also even uses fisheye lenses and close-ups, and whenever you distort the cast of the movie, when they start to get less attractive, and the sound design of the movie. The sound designing is also very superb and really bringing the aspect of horror to full emotion and impact in there. So, after Elizabeth knows of the substance, she becomes intrigued and desperate, and so she orders the subject, and once the substance then arrives, once she finds out the substance arrives, she has to go pick it up. And so when she picks it up and gets back home, she injects a single-use serum and then convulses as her body generates this younger version of herself named Sue, who then emerges from this slit in her back. And so the two bodies then switch consciousness every 7 days without exception, with the inactive body remaining unconscious and fed with this weekly food supply. And the daily injections of stabilizer fluid really get extracted from the original body, and they prevent Sue from deteriorating. And so when we get to Sue immediately, once going to the TV studio Elizabeth worked at, she quickly becomes this overnight sensation after auditioning to be Elizabeth's replacement on a TV show, and offered the chance by Harvey to host the network's New Year's Eve show. Sue is living this confident and hedonistic life. Elizabeth, though, starts to become a self-hating recluse. And near the end of one weekly cycle, Sue parties and brings this man home for casual sex, and so the switch ends up getting delayed because she ends up having sex and getting all drunk and stuff by pretty much extracting stabilizer fluid. And so Elizabeth's index finger then suddenly ages the next day when she finds the whole mess and wakes up to the whole mess. So Elizabeth contacts a supplier who warns her that disobeying the program leads to rapid aging of the original body. And so, despite the two's consciousness, Sue and Elizabeth then start to view themselves as separate individuals, and they grow to despise one another. Elizabeth resents Sue for her frequent disregard of the switching schedule, and it further caused her to start aging more and more. Sue is appalled by Elizabeth's self-loathing and binge eating, which kind of becomes a thing there during her scenes. Usually she then starts taking out things like this whole entire chicken or this piece of pie and watching TV there, and even leaving a mess. And she starts to rapidly age more and more, where half her face looks very old age, and her hair starts to get very wrinkly and worn out. And the makeup on Demi Moore in these scenes looks very fantastic and terrifying during the aging scenes. And And following this destructive episode as Elizabeth, then Sue then stockpiles stabilizer fluid and decides she's not going to switch back. Like, the makeup is remarkable. The team really deserved making the credit for making Elizabeth up the way they did. And like the scenes here really have a strong message about our obsession with youth. It makes that point on many levels. Like, these moments where they show the aging are very graphic and over the top, and like, they do good in really making the viewer feel very disturbed. Like, right there. And yeah, okay, now we're back on. Like Demi Moore gives such a great performance that it's very great to see her back again, and especially actually definitely deserve the Golden Globe for this performance right here. You can definitely, once you watch this movie, you can definitely see why she won. Right here. Like, she gives such a remarkable performance, and it's definitely her best performance. Yeah, it's like, I had taken a bit of a break from film, and it really came back with this movie. And I hope after this she still gets some more roles again. One part of the movie that definitely stands out was, it's the bit when Sue gets really greedy and destroys the older body. It's definitely what makes the story pretty tragic, as Sue decides she doesn't want to swap bodies like she's supposed to. She takes all the liquid from the old body to herself so she could stay alive. It's kind of a metaphor for how people really harm themselves to meet impossible beauty standards, and watching Elizabeth's older body rot and decay really reflects how damaging a lot of pressures can be, where society can push people to sacrifice their health and well-being just to look a certain way, especially for a certain role. And when Sue's greed ends up destroying both bodies, it really stuck with me in the theater, and definitely does well in sticking with the viewers, because it shows how chasing perfection can lead to losing everything, including ourselves. And the other surprising aspect is easily the number of references that pay homage to like classic horror films. Like, you can tell the director really held a deep respect for the genre, and really makes these references very well. Like, and also adds a bit of a layer for entertainment for the horror fans, where Elizabeth Sparkle's transformation and obsession resembles Nia Sayers' Metaphorist in Black Swan, the Darren Aronofsky film from 2010, or the corridor scenes inspired by Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and the close-up shots really serve as this nod to David Cronenberg classics, including The Fly from 1986. And the revelation of the monster even really shares similarity to The Fly, and also has kind of similarity to the David Lynch film The Elephant Man, where in an interview, apparently Fargetti mentioned that the late director David Lynch was actually one of her inspirations for making the film. And so that does well in really showing the connections. And why I mentioned late director is because this week, as this was being recorded, David Lynch had sadly passed away. And may he rest in peace. So, now that we know that Sue's been confirmed to be hosting the New Year's Eve telecast for her upcoming replacement series of Elizabeth series, and Elizabeth has been rapidly aging more and more, we get to 3 months later. It's the day before the New Year's Eve telecast. Sue has sadly run out of stabilizer fluid and contacts the supplier. The supplier informs her that she has to switch back to replenish the fluid. So when they switch, Elizabeth finds herself pretty much transformed to an elderly hunchback, which could kind of reference the certain Disney film that Demi Moore acted in, because she did voice act in that film. No way, but she's now desperate to stop Sue from aging her further, so she orders a serum designed to terminate her, but still craving the admiration that Sue's celebrity status provides, she immediately stops though before fully injecting the serum, and instead revives Sue and leaves both unconscious. But Sue now realizes Elizabeth tried to kill her, and so she beats Elizabeth to death before she takes off to go host a New Year's Eve special. Now it comes to Margaret's performance as Sue. It's also a revelation that really testaments her exceptional talents. Like, this is the first film I saw her in, and she did very well. To definitely have a bright future for filmmaking out of her, and easily, I can't wait to check out more of her films. Yeah, she doesn't outperform Demi Moore, but she does give a bold and horrific performance as Sue, or pretty much the younger version of Demi Moore's character. And like both actresses are definitely able to play their characters differently, and at the same time, you know that they're one person. They're in turmoil for success. And the pressure is really evident in the characters they play. And since I mentioned David Cronenberg's The Fly earlier, like The Fly, it's a very sad tale about loneliness, isolation, the pressure you feel to be a better version of yourself. Right here. And it's also not much of a dialogue-filled film, because you know in the movie, Elizabeth has no friends, she doesn't talk to anyone outside of work, and lives on her own. And a prospect of this date from a school friend comes up, like, there's this one guy she runs into that tries to ask her out for this little catching up outing. She declines at first, but she still gets his number. Then she thinks about going, but then she doesn't feel worthy enough to match her former self, sadly. Our third actor, Dennis Quaid, who plays the sleazy TV executive Harley, he's pretty much every kind of toxic producer in a lot of studios today. Like, originally, like, if we still had Ray Liotta in the role, if we still got to have Ray Liotta in the role, like, I wonder how this character could have went had he been able to do the role. And honestly, I do kind of wish that did still happen. Dennis Quaid was still pretty good, but I do wish we could have had Ray Liotta still could have did this role. The pacing is also very relentless. Like, as soon as the movie starts, you don't get a single moment to catch your breath. Like, and it really works in the film's favor, because there's moments where there's more breathing room. Well, yeah, we could add some more breathing room and all, but still, it really still does work. Like, once the movie starts, it gets going. It never gives you a bit of a break to calm down. The score is really this pulsing, synth-heavy affair that really complements the film's fever dream aesthetic. So, after Elizabeth has been killed, we then immediately get on with the finale. Now that Elizabeth is dead, Sue's body begins to rapidly deteriorate. Right there. And so, such as pretty much she loses teeth, she loses a nail. In a way, like, she has to only smile with her mouth closed, because Dennis Quaid's character is bringing these, like, elderly executives to meet her. And so, like, she's now in a panic and tries to create a new version of herself using the activator serum, despite the single-use warning. So, this fails, and so it ends up having this grotesque mutated body, the monstro Alyssa Sue, which pretty much has both Sue and Elizabeth faces. Right there. And so, like, it does feel like a homage to the finale of The Fly. And Alyssa Sue then returns to the studio and tries to host the show with this mask cut out from a poster of Elizabeth, but sadly, though, this fails. The disguise then falls off. Everybody sees her real face. The audience is shocked. Then eventually they're terrified, and then it all becomes pretty much chaos in a way where she's getting pushed around by guys calling her a monster and to be murdered. Then an audience member even decapitates her, but she grows her head back, and an even more mutated one at that. And then one of her arms snaps off, and blood sprays all over the audience, which is kind of a nice little throwback to stuff like, they're kind of like horror films like The Evil Dead and Carrie. They're a nice little throwback to those two films right there. So after that has all happened, like, this goes on for like 10 or 5 minutes even. She then flees the studio, but her legs break off, and so she collapses and explodes into chunks of pieces, and Elizabeth's original face detaches from all the gore and goes to her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And then she smiles one last time as she hallucinates being admired before melting to a puddle of blood and officially dying. And the last shot you get of this movie is a floor scrubber cleaning it up the next day, and the star just remains cracked and empty. It's clear that no one will remember Elizabeth at all. People will just forget about her completely. So yeah, The Substance sadly ends on a very tragic and miserable note, where Elizabeth attempted to terminate Sue, but loses her nerve. Elizabeth gets killed by the hands of Sue, her younger clone, and then starts falling apart before a New Year's Eve show, and resorts to the last dose of the activator, and rather than try to renew her body, it creates the Monstro Alyssa Sue, which causes panic before she ends up fleeing and bursting to flesh pieces on the streets, with only a mess of Elizabeth's face, and that dissolves on her star, and her remains are swept away. So people won't even remember her legacy. They may remember her show, but nothing else. They only remember her for her show, and that's it. Other than that, anything else about her will just be forgotten about, sadly. And the worst thing is, it's implied that this whole toxic fame and beauty, vicious cycle is going to continue. Harvey and his associates, they're still going to find another young and pretty actress to replace Sue now. And of course, the substance is going to still keep getting distributed to them, to any that start to get up there in age. So, nothing's going to get resolved ever. And there's going to be more future victims to come. And Elizabeth was the 503rd customer of the product. You even kind of find that out because apparently one of the nurses is this old guy that followed Elizabeth to this restaurant and showed this black tattoo the 7th day. And it was apparently he was one of the 200th victims. That whole final experience, that's quite a weird final experience, and it's definitely one that's pretty hard to process, and a lot does kind of go on, and it does get really chaotic quick, and there's some nice homages, and there's clear motives in the ending, like the blood spewing all over the audience is kind of to communicate that Elizabeth and Sue's blood is on the audience's hands too, it's on the executives' hands, since they're the audience at that New Year's Eve show, that pretty much caused Elizabeth to mutate and alter her body to a deadly degree, which pretty much is kind of Harvey's fault, the network's fault, the talk show host's fault. It's kind of all their faults that Elizabeth died. They basically threw her out of her own show that she loved doing, all because she wasn't young enough anymore. And so that caused her to go to that dangerous drug to try to keep up doing what she loved. And then she pretty much died, all because of that. She rapidly aged too quick and died because of that. And sadly, this cycle will continue once a new star they find gets too old for the role. You're out of here, time to find a new one. Then they'll probably end up finding out about the substance, and they'll go to that. So pretty much, yeah, Harvey and executives pretty much get away with what they pretty much kind of get away with everything. And their careers will continue to go very well. It's quite a tragic and scary ending. Now, The Substance is a great film, but does it have bad qualities? Yeah, the movie, like I said before, the movie is definitely not an easy watch. There were many times where I really got shook up by many bits in the movie and squirmed quite a bit. It's definitely not the fun kind of gore. It's more the unpleasantness of sitting through that kind of gore and it's not too bleak, stop caring, because while the movie is bleak, it's still very well written and well acted. So you can still kind of enjoy the movie despite having a bleak story, and the gore's not really the main focus. And the over-the-top finale, as much as it was cool to have throwbacks to stuff like Carrie and Evil Dead, I feel like the finale just kind of go on a little bit too long. In the last 10 minutes, but kind of really could have just cut out the last 10 minutes. You could have cut out the blood spraying bit, because I feel like that was just kind of filler, because I feel like they kind of just wanted to add a bit more shock value to the finale in that bit, so I feel like that could have been cut out. I don't think you really needed that bit, to be honest. Or it could have been like much shorter than like 10 minutes. Other than those, The Substance, it is definitely a masterpiece of horror cinema and definitely should be watched. But it's probably not something you should watch on repeat. So in the end, The Substance, it's definitely worth buying, but probably not one to watch twice because it's definitely not an easy movie to get through, and it's a movie that's going to definitely stay with you for a very long time. It wasn't even easy doing this review because, to be honest, I'm kind of still a little disturbed and terrified from what I saw myself. I think I'm gonna be thinking about this film for a very long time. Anyways, that's it for my review of The Substance. If we're anyhow gonna rate The Substance, here's how I'm gonna rate this movie. So overall, if you are eager to see Demi Moore again after a long while, a body horror film done very well in today's era, and one that's gonna definitely stick with you for a while, then totally watch it by The Substance for your collection, no doubt. And if you're wondering how to rate The Substance, I'm going to give The Substance a 9 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That wraps up my review for The Substance. Now I want to know in the comments down below, for those who did see The Substance, what you thought about it. Whether you might think about checking this movie out, or whether this movie might not be for you, so you might pass on it. But, until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.